First of all, good to see everyone. Good to have a schedule out in front of us and a little bit more clarity after a long time. And obviously, we're not the only ones dealing with that uncertainty. But yeah, just great to have the schedule. The guys have come back, very ready to go. We had a really productive fall that wrapped up December 4th. They came back January 4th to report. About a week later, we started training. So we're a few weeks in, 3 weeks to remain, heading into our first match. And I feel like we're, in as good a place as we can be, all things considered. And the guys have done a great job of just putting one foot in front of the other and saying tomorrow's the day, and not trying to overthink the what ifs of what could happen with looking at other sports and all of the challenges that we've all seen. So I couldn't be really happier with the way the team has handled this, in particular the seniors, who I think has been the hardest hit with the season kind of pulled underneath them at the 12th hour. That was the hardest. So other than that, that was some general thoughts.
Jared? Tamar?
Hi, Coach. How essential has it really been for you to have that senior leadership for your team, that experience that really drives the team forward, especially now that you have a schedule out and you're getting ready to prepare for this first match?
Yes, it's always important. Certainly, I think this year in particular, I think this team. I don't know if every team that we've had in the last 5-7 years would have handled this as honestly as well as this team. And so many factors come into that. A lot of it's how your last year ended, what the dynamic of your team is, what's the balance of old and young, and this older group of our four seniors, and all of them are leaders in different ways. 3 of them being captains, have done a really good job. They've connected well with the younger players. Our team is very, we're much heavier on the freshman, sophomore, and even that eligibility wise, freshman, sophomore. So not a lot of experience, and these seniors have been in big games and big moments and seen what successful teams look like. And it's great for us to say and give perspective, but when it comes from your teammates and players they respect, then it just carries more weight.
Jordan?
Coach, with all the unknowns kind of going through the fall, and even go back to last summer, to really get to where we are now, having the spring season, what does it mean for your team to be able to go out there and compete in a all Big Ten schedule, which is what's going to be this year?
Yeah, it's different. I think because we've known for so long now about the schedule for Big Ten, that I think would have been another tough one to handle in September when the news. So I think they've had a lot of time to prepare. Our team really enjoys our non-conference slate as well. So, every sport's unique in that. Our Big Ten schedule is difficult. They know that, and they're obviously excited to play games. But I think the reality of playing only conference only has been – they've seen that throughout the football season now with basketball. I think it's easy for them to kind of comprehend. At first, they're like, that's pretty weird. And yet I think it's now kind of the new norm, although, gosh, temporarily, we hope, that it's a conference only. And then obviously the tournament would obviously allow you to go play other teams if we're able to be in that position.
Jeremy Price?
How much do you feel like you have kind of a handle on who can do what, given that you've had 5 months to look at these guys as opposed to 2 weeks in a normal preseason? Or how much do you still need to see actual game action to figure some of that stuff out?
I think it's a really good question, because we have had a lot of time. We've had a lot of good inter-squad scrimmages that have allowed us to assess, and we replicate the best we can under the lights, different incentives, just the whole 9 yards. So, but it is different when you're matching up against another team. The game is real points in the line. And some players really rise, and others, get a little timid in that moment, at least early. So although some of the freshmen look to be maybe a bit more ready, you really don't know until we get into true competition. But I do feel we have a much better idea. The ability we're able to capture, good video and a lot of good team teaching throughout the fall put us way ahead of where we normally would be with rotation players in particular, because a lot of them, you're trying to get stuff into them in 2 weeks of a preseason, maybe an exhibition. There's not enough learning opportunities unless you throw them in the real game, and then sink or swim at that point. They're still learning, but it's a lot of pressure in those moments. So I liked having the fall to get a lot of the younger players experience. I think that was probably the most beneficial. I can't speak for every coach, but again, our roster is so competitive and we have such good depth that I think we really grew internally, and gave us and the team a really good sense of kind of where we are. But the psychological element of it, Jeremy, is we're always winning every day out here. You don't have quite the feeling of like beating a competitor to give you that extra confidence. And certainly nothing's quite like not getting a victory. And that's really challenging. And so some of the other guys, you don't know even how they handle that yet.
Jared?
It's crazy to think that, the last time you guys played a competitive match, Aiden Morse was, still on the team. But I mean, he was so essential and crucial to what you guys did last year. I mean, is there anyone that you foresee maybe taking over some of that workload in the midfield, or is that something that maybe Joe Schmidt could kind of work himself into this year?
Yeah, no question. Aiden was great he was a freshman with swag that some seniors don't have. And we obviously saw that in his rookie year with Columbus. What a great job he did in the final. I do feel that it will look a little different, but I do feel we have players that are ready and capable of doing more. I thought Joe Schmidt was a great year last year to be kind of a complementary midfielder for Aiden, and they played well off each other. And Joe's ready to do more. And I think what's great about Joe is that he could have done more last year, but it didn't fit maybe what we needed. And he now understands he needs to do more and is capable. And yet his counterpart in there will be most likely a mixed group of players. It won't be as steady potentially as just having one. I see an AJ Palazzolo playing in there, a Brett Beebe, Kyle Folds, one of our freshmen, has potential to help him infield. Ben Yeagley has opportunity to play in there. There's quite a few that can play in there. Quentin Helmer, they're all different. And so I think what the fall has given us is like, okay, situationally, who's the best match based on how the rest of the team's doing, our opponent, and maybe even what Joe needs that game. Joe's definitely that steady piece that we know should be in there. I think it's going to look different, but I think we could be equally as effective, if you follow me.
Jordan?
Coach, has COVID-19 had any direct effect on any players or personnel staff with you guys as you kind of lead into the season? And how have you kind of been approaching that subject with your players?
Yeah, I think we've had, cases in the team. I've myself had it. I think when having a real experience does give you perspective. And I think it's important that you can, be transparent within the team about that. And, the guys are doing the best they can. We all know this is one really tricky virus that's really hard to fully stay safe from. And, but ultimately we've had nothing that's really been really devastating to the program. So a really close loved one, things of that nature we haven't had in our program. So, we've had a typical year of, maybe a grandparent's passed away, not COVID related, but just a tough time. Other things that come in with managing your team and your players, but they've been, pretty steadfast on knowing that, COVID's dangerous, but at the same time, their peer groups handled it pretty darn well. Just as you would follow statistically, most of them have pretty mild cases and are able to get through it pretty quick.
Jeremy Price?
What have you maybe kind of learned from watching other sports in terms of how they've handled it and kind of what to be aware of, or maybe how to keep certain parts of the team so that you don't wind up, with everybody sidelined from contact tracing or things like that?
Yeah, I think that's a jigsaw puzzle, Jeremy. The ability to enter the game with a game plan for the opponent, equally as important as maybe where you put your players on the bus, or who's the roommate with who, and so again, it makes it really hard for a coach and players to know that, like, tomorrow you just don't know what's going to get thrown at you. And I've seen that throughout the other these fall and winter sports, that I mean the epitome of like perseverance and like handling adversity is thrown at you all the time. And we had some in the fall, but it wasn't a match that we were losing or a match we couldn't play. It was maybe we had a pause or we had some other issues that happened. But yeah, it's I think steadfast, the teams that can really manage those, that have a really good internal culture, which I think we do, I think are the best positioned to get out of those. But yeah, how you position people, how you figure out how to roommate and the boss, I mean, that is quite a jigsaw puzzle that we're putting together. So we can avoid the things you can't avoid. I mean, we love to plan and prepare, so we don't want to lose a detail with regards to that. And so it's tricky. There's so many darn rules and things that they're challenging. It's really hard as a coach. I mean, you can see it in the other sports. You need to see someone that everyone puts their mask down when they want to talk. There's a reason for that, not because they're not being unsafe. They just need to connect. And when you're talking to a player, it's very difficult to have that same connection. Just being honest. Now, you do what you got to do, and you try to, obviously go in these games and everyone's been tested, but there's a reason for that. Coaches, the hardest thing for this year has been the ability to connect with your players. I've done so little compared to what I normally do outside of the field, and that's frustrating. And I think that some of the younger guys may not know the difference, but I think that's the big thing for coaches, whether it's meetings, time on the bus, time in the hotels, team meals. There's a lot of bonding and moments that you teach and you get better, and we're not having those. You don't do that grabbing and going and doing Zoom sessions. You just can't. So I think, again, everyone's in the same boat. So it's not like anyone has a competitive advantage in that area. I think it's whoever can complain the least and still be effective, but still know that there's maybe you have to be a little more patient if something's not connecting, because it's not normal in what we're doing.
Last question, Jared Rigdon.
Yeah, guys like Herb and Malone and Victor had immediate impact last year as freshmen. Have you seen growth, especially after they go through almost 2 full off seasons at this point, to guys that can be ready to step up and take over a consistent starting role potentially?
I think all the freshmen that you saw last year that had significant time, you mentioned Malone and Herb, are two that are capable of playing large minutes. Obviously, with Josh's departure, it opens up time wide. We rotate our wide and attacking positions, just the nature of what we ask for them to do, and we have good depth. So I think Malone and Herb have grown a lot. They're not certainly the only ones. Ian Black, we saw a lot of good things last year early, and then he had the injury. So we're hoping we can get Ian back to that kind of 2019 early fall form, what he's capable of doing. And then again, Victor Becerra is probably the one that I think when you see him play, you'll go, wow. We thought he was, talented last year. He's really, really grown and developed. And to see a player of that ability grow that much over the 6-9 months has been pretty fun to watch. So Victor has been really elevating, and his scoring clip in training has been one of the highest I've seen. So really excited about Victor's progress.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys. Have a good rest of the day, guys. Hope to see you soon in person as well.